PM, I would like to ask about the youngsters in Singapore and how can they actually build confidence that they're actually doing better than the previous generations, especially so when they are less likely to actually do upgrading.
Well, my starting point is, as an old man, I envy the young men and women because you are enjoying advantages and opportunities which never existed in my generation. We've built Singapore. We've built the education system. We've educated you. We've given you perspectives on the world, opportunities to travel. If you go to university, practically everybody who goes to NUS or SMU or SITD has an externship, an overseas attachment somewhere during his university course. And about 40%, 50% nearly of Singaporeans now go to our autonomous universities, AUs. In my generation, it was like about 3-4% went to universities in Singapore. You grow up learning to swipe the iPad before you learn to speak. May not be a good thing, but you have the opportunity to be exposed to the technology, to use the technology, to connect to the world, to be more productive, and to do all kinds of jobs which my generation never heard of. Esports trainer. You can make a living. You are sitting there playing with your fingers and mouse in a super special chair with a big screen, and you can make a living. So, is that a worse life than the previous generation? I don't think so. What is true is that the previous generation came from third world to first. We took them there on the journey, started poor, progressed rapidly year by year, ended up many not poor. Most not poor, some many well off, and some very, very successful. So that's an exhilarating journey. And you start off with a 3-room flat, you end up in an executive apartment, or maybe you even upgraded to private property. So this generation, you have a 4-room flat or 5-room flat, or maybe a condo. You're not starting at the same very low level, but you're starting at a higher level and a higher quality of accommodation as well as life. And can you bring it higher? Answer is yes. It won't improve as fast as before, but you came very fast from here to here, and you're not going back down, you're going up from here slower, but if we work at it, we can continue moving upwards. I would feel very disappointed if a young person were pessimistic about his opportunities in life and wish he had been born earlier. I wish I had been born later. You must argue you're a young person.
Well, fair enough, actually. I think I do stand with what you say.
How do you think the government can convince young people that, instead of looking at all these financial gains, because I think a lot of the times, as you said, it's looking at other people, starting with a 3-room flat and then ending up in a bungalow, and they are thinking that that's never going to happen to me. And because of that, they almost feel like, oh, I'm not doing as well as the previous generation. How would you convince them?
Well, I think if you talk about quality of living, very many in the old generation were living 5 or 6 or 10 in a rental flat. Nobody does that today. There are many who went from rental flat to executives, some even to private property, not so few. Can everybody make that journey from where you are now, if you move into a new flat in Bidadari or Tengah? Probably not everybody can do that. But that's only in terms of the area of the house you live in. In terms of the quality of the life in your home, the amenities, the connections, the social environment in the neighborhood which we have built up, I think you can have a very high quality of life in Singapore, and comparable to, if not better than, in nearly any other major city in the world. What we don't have is what other major cities in bigger countries can do. And that is, if you are working in Manhattan in New York, maybe you can go upstate and out of Manhattan on the weekend and go to some other place with a bit more space, and then you can decompress. And same if you are living in London or in Sydney. And in Singapore, well, you can't go, there's no upstate Singapore because all of Singapore is pretty developed. But our neighboring countries are not very far away, and many Singaporeans travel. That's why there are long traffic jams on the weekend on the causeway.
You don't decompress and you go through a jam.
Well, the RTS link will make things better. I'm told what people do is they expect a jam, they download their Netflix movies, and then they sit there and watch their movies waiting to clear CIQ.